Hello, everyone. In this lecture, we continue from where we left my grandmother's house. It was first published in summertime in Calcutta, and we have completed one lecture on it. So, this is lecture number two. Let's go on to the second movement of the poem. Here, we will be dealing with the shift in the tone of the poem. Uh, How often I think of going there to peer through blind eyes of windows or just listen to the frozen air. So the poet makes it very clear that she longs to go back. And it is in this longing, this reminiscence, this nostalgic trace to the past, this nostalgic tracing of the past that marks this poem. And she says that she longs to go back. Now, this word long is also a marker of the long gap in time that she has undergone from her childhood to this present stage where she wishes to go back to her grandmother's house. And look, she says, how often I think of going there. So she wishes to go back to that past which actually marked her childhood. Now, look, in this poem, we have something very interesting. This is called the magic cirque of memory. Cirque as in Cirque. Now, look at my hand. If this point is the past, a glorious past which has gone by. In the present, this point is the present. That glorious past cannot be achieved anymore. Now, the poet or the speaker wishes to go to a future where she can have this glory of this past. Now, look, we have half a circle, and this is called the magic circle of memory. That is to arrive at a past in a distant future which is missing in the present. Okay, and this poem is characterized by that magic circle of memory, which Kamala thus wishes to go back to. To peer through blind eyes of windows. Now, it is often said that the window of the house, the eyes are the windows of the soul, the eyes are the windows to the soul, because eyes cannot lie. Therefore, it is suggested often that the windows are the eyes of the house. And she says, through the blind eyes of windows. So she would, now, since the house is closed, there must be some curtains on the windows. That is a physical reality. But look how she says that blind eyes and blind eyes themselves, there is a pun. Now, Kamala thus suggests that the house has become blind. The house has become, uh, we are unable to see what is going on in the house solely because the person or the person who animated the house is no longer there. When someone is dead, we close their eyes. Similarly, since the grandmother is dead, as if the house has also lost its soul. Excuse me. Or just listen to the frozen air. Now, since the house is closed, the air in there is frozen because there is no airflow. The house is shut down. And as if she hints that the frozen air of the house still contains the memories, the sounds of her grandmother, the voice of her grandmother. So, look, there is a desire to go back to that past which she has lost. And it is in this desire to go back to the past that Kamala Das is trying to locate herself into. Now, here there is something which is a bit problematic because you see, in psychoanalysis, There is often a drive to go back to the past, as in every child or every grown up person often wishes to revert back to that um, past where the person was in the mother's womb, where she was or he was safe. And we can see this same drive in Kamaladas because in this house, which was like her womb of safety, she wishes to revert back to. And in this desire to revert back to that past, Kamala Das is kind of trying to find out her own language, a language which is very significant, a language which marks her own language. So she reverts back to that past repeatedly to kind of arrive at her own feminine language, because this language is a masculine phenomenon. Just let me give you one single and simple example. Uh, Whenever we refer to third person singular number, we never think about she first. We think about he. Language is always masculine, it's always patriarchal. It's a discourse of patriarchy. And therefore, often women since the 1960s, when they have spoken about themselves in language, they have chosen to refrain from this patriarchal masculine language, and they have chosen a language of their own, a language which is constructed through their own menstrual blood, through their own uh, menstrual pangs, their pangs of childbirth, and so on and so forth. And this language has a specific name in French. It's called uh, l'écriture féminin or l'écriture féminine, if we translate it into English. So this écriture means writing, ECRITURE. So this feminine écriture becomes central to the discourse of Kamala Das. Or in wild despair, pick an armful of darkness to bring it here to lie behind my bedroom door like a brooding dog. This is a very interesting imagery where two images fuse. Whenever we think of a dog, we think of something which is very warm, fuzzy, something which will protect us. So there is a sense of protection in a dog, right? So she compares that with the darkness of her past, as if her past darkness, she can bring the darkness that resides in that house right now, because there is no one, so there is no light, so there is only darkness. And the darkness is the reservoir of the memories that she had with her grandmother. And she wishes to bring a handful of those memories, that darkness. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Similarly, so she wishes to bring a whiff, a handful of that darkness and keep it with her, and which shall serve as a protective canine figure. And look, she says that I want to bring it beside my bedroom door. So, as since the bedroom is the most private of all of our uh, household, because it is the cradle of procreation and it is the cradle of rest as well. Therefore, the bedroom is always a very, what should I say, a very welcome place to all of us. Like, I love my bed. So many of you might as well. So therefore, what happens is that Kamala Das fuses several images together to create a sense of sanctity, to create a sense of warmth, to create a sense of being fulfilled, feeling fulfilled. That is a very interesting thing. And you know, if you read Greek philosophy, the ancient Greeks, they were never concerned with how much money you have, what worldly possessions you have. They were concerned with something called eudaimonia. EUDAIMONIA. Eudaimonia means fulfillment. So the Greeks asked, are you fulfilled? That's a very important question which we have forgotten in today's world. And therefore, Kamala Das is suggesting that uh, I would bring a handful of that darkness which contains the memories of my grandmother and bring it to my bedroom door and keep it as a dog, as if I would pet it, I would nourish it, I would nurture it, I would cherish it. You cannot believe, darling, can you? That that I lived in such a house and was proud and loved. So now she directly addresses the reader that you cannot believe it, right? And she calls the reader darling. So she endears the reader and says that you cannot believe it, right? That I was so very loved once in that house. Because you see, whenever a reader would go back to Kamala Das with all those expectations of those sexual horrors, of those domestic turbulences, which mark her other writings, she was so loved. And she deliberately brings the reader into confidence that yes, I was loved. I, who have lost my way and beg now at strangers' doors to receive love, at least in small change. Now, she compares her past situation and her present situation, where she says that right now, I am so very hungry for love, I am so very thirsty for love that, like a beggar, I beg to strangers for some love, just like some changes. Like you, if you have a big note, you go for a change. That is, you make small coins out of it. That change. So as if she's comparing love with money here as well, because in the present day world, love is often associated with money. Like say, all those Bollywood cinemas where you find that the hero doesn't do anything and the heroine still falls in love with her, with him, and then they kind of uh, create their own household without any shade, without any money, and suddenly love sprouts, they have a child, the hero gets miraculously rich, and so on and so forth. So Kamala Das is not going into that kind of a far fetched fairy tale, not a Bollywood propagated far fetched fairy tale, but rather she says that thing. Even we also, you and I, we both seek love. And when we seek love, often we seek it from weird people, from wrong people. And if you just go to your Facebook account, and you will see that there are so many people just seeking not just love, but validation as well. Because validation is also one form of love. And there you'll find that those people are actually seeking validation not for just themselves, but to kind of make up for the loss of validation that they perhaps have had from someone else. And therefore, she kind of compares this idea of love with the idea of money, because in the present world, money speaks louder than love. It does. If you do not agree with me, then you are not in the real world. So that's the thing. Kamala Das here compares her love, the love of her grandmother, which was an unconditional grandparental love, which was more of a caring love, and the kind of love that we seek, we beg for, which we are missing. Now, there was a psychoanalyst, one of the famous followers of Sigmund Freud, who changed psychoanalysis forever. His name was Jacques Lacan. Jacques Lacan suggested that he has a concept called the mirror stage. Now, that is a difficult concept, and I would not go into that. But just understand this much, that Lacan suggests that when we realize that we are a different person from our mother, and that the mother is not an object belonging to us, a child thinks that the mother is a continuation of it. The mother belongs to the child. But as the child grows up, the child kind of dissociates with the mother. And when this dissociation happens, there is a lack in the child. And the child keeps on going into newer formulations, be it success, be it family, be it love, be it whatever. The child is actually trying to kind of compensate for that lack that it possesses. And Kamala, since she was deprived of her love from her husband, who actually forcefully tried to have a sexual relationship with a young girl against her will, therefore you see in Kamala, these complexes about love and sexuality and memory are very, very intertwined. And they kind of create her identity and they create her language. Her language serves as her identity, and therefore she kind of directly refers to herself in her poetry to bring out her own suffering. Now, you might ask that then if Kamala Das is doing this, she's writing about herself. Then why should you and I read about Kamala Das? Because you see, at least in the present Indian context, Kamala Das is not alone. We have such stories almost in every household. Maybe in your relatives, maybe in your friends. You have a similar story with different characters in different situations. But the story still remains the same. We are all deprived of love. And therefore, Kamala Das becomes even more relevant in this year, in this time, in this climb, because she talks about human deprivation and human desire for love. So that is it for my grandmother's house. I'll come back with another poem in another lecture. Thank you so much. Hope to see you soon. And if you have any questions or any comments or any suggestions, or if you would like to have any discussions, you can always put it up on the comment section and I'll be happy to reply.